Our podcast is called Rowan On. Each time we have a guest, it will be a specific topic.
My upbringing revolved around sport. Eventually, I met members of the radio station in my but seeing them develop as humans, that is the most enjoyable part of the job.
Welcome to Rowan On. I'm your host, Karen Holloway. For today's show, we will be discussing broadcasting. We'll be chatting with a legend and longtime member of the Rowan family, an NCAA broadcaster, station manager of one of the most successful college radio stations in the nation, and the voice that guides our graduates across the stage at commencement. Please welcome none other than Derek Jones.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm blown away by that intro. Legend. Oh, my goodness.
Well, you certainly are. You are known across the entire institution, and you've been a staple here for quite some time. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here. This is very awesome. This is impressive. I like it.
Well, that's awesome coming from someone who's in broadcasting, so we appreciate that. Today's topic, Rowan On, broadcasting. Before we get into it, can you tell us a bit about your journey before you got to Rowan? What was your upbringing like? What got you into broadcasting? What really triggered this career for you?
Well, my upbringing, a lot of it has revolved around sports. Some of my earliest memories involve watching my brother play high school basketball. He went to Triton High School. He was the team MVP. So I would go to his games. I would watch basketball. I would watch Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, Eagles. I would watch that stuff all the time. And then along the way, I really picked up an affinity for the broadcasters who were helping to describe the action. So eventually I realized I might want to try this. I have no idea if I'd be any good at it, but I'd like to think I could give it a shot at some point. So when I was probably heading into high school, late era, middle school, like 8th grade, then into high school, that's probably when the bee was in the bonnet to maybe see if I could do this at some point.
You were a student here, an undergrad student at Rowan University.
Yes.
How did you end up here? And what did you study? And what was your journey like as a student?
So when I applied for schools, I applied to 3 schools. I applied to Delaware, Temple, and Rowan. I didn't want to go to any of those 3 originally. I wanted to go to the University of Miami because I grew up watching college football. My favorite team was the Miami Hurricanes. I was like, I want to go to Miami. Again, the parents were like, do you really, though? Do you really want to go to the University of Miami? So eventually I got accepted by Rowan University, and when I got accepted by Rowan, I thought, okay, how do I make the best of this situation? Because originally I was going through the EOF MAP program. Mm-hmm. So the EOF MAP program was a pre-college institute program where you would actually come to Rowan before the start of the school year.
Okay.
And you would take a couple of courses. You would be able to get some college credits early on. So I opted to do that. And that's how I got my start here at Rowan. So it was a good springboard for me going into my freshman year. So I got a little bit of a lay of the land at Rowan, and I was able to meet some students, make some friends early on. And that was, to me, very important because I was able to get an opportunity to understand what Rowan was early on. I think as a freshman, it can be very overwhelming when you first come to college. And that experience helped me kind of get over that hump early on.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of students have that fear, that unknowing, that is sort of a culture shock. So coming in a little early, getting exposure to things definitely sounds like it would help. Now, as an undergrad, tell me about the path you took, and did you do any radio work then? Talk about that.
Originally, I came to Rowan thinking I was going to do television. So I joined RTN at the time, and that was the first organization I hopped into.
Rowan Television Network.
Yes, Rowan Television Network. So when I first started doing that, they had coverage of sports games. I thought, okay, let me get involved with that. Eventually, I met members of the radio station in my travels. I'm doing some of the sports stuff. And one of my friends, still a good friend to this day, Jason Helder, who was a student member of Rowan Radio at the time, he said, why don't you come over to the radio station? We've got a lot of opportunities here for you to help out. I think you would be good at it. So I ended up over at the radio station. I trained my freshman year spring semester, and then I'm still there to this day.
So it just pretty much became home.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the big things about Rowan Radio. The students that were there at the time made it feel like a home. And you were learning from people who were awesome at what they were doing. And they made it a fun environment as well, which was pretty cool. So that was my entry into Rowan Radio and how I got started. And it's been a lot of fun because you've been able to see so many aspects of the business, even as a student, which was really neat.
Yeah. So you did sports casting. Did you also go on the air and do some of the music side of things?
Yes, I did a regular daytime show. I did the Early Bird Show, which is the morning not talk show, but morning music program that we have. I've done pretty much most of the shows on the air there. There was a hip hop show at one point on weekends that I did. I just kind of made, cameo fill-in appearance. I've done classic rock shows, R&B, classical music shows. I've done at some point a little bit of everything because of the role I was in as a student and eventually as an employee.
Take me through what it's like for a student now at the station, and what sort of students? I mean, are they all coming from the College of Communication? Are they all in the radio program? Can it be a student from a different program? And talk to me a little bit about the student journey.
Right now, we have mostly students from the College of Communication. So it's mostly students who are somewhere in that realm. A lot of sports cam students are in there right now. I think one of the things we've prided ourselves on over the years is the fact that we've had a lot of students who have been successful at the radio station who were not RTF majors or communication majors. They were engineering majors. They were business majors. They found a way to fit into the radio station. I think sometimes there's a misnomer that Rowan Radio's open only to communication majors. That's not true. It's open to any college, any major. If you're a major here, if you're going to school here at Rowan, it's available for undergrads to be a part of. So, and I think there's some usefulness in it. Building communication skills, I think, is a very important skill nowadays, especially in this era of social media and all of these things. You have to know how to communicate with an audience.
Right.
So I think that's a tool that's very useful for all majors, not just communication. But our student base has pretty traditionally been communication majors, mostly RTF. It's shifted a lot as of late because of the rapid rise of the sports cam program here on campus. Now at the radio station, we have all the games for Rowan that we used to have. So baseball, softball, football, soccer, basketball. We cover all of those sports. But we also have Delaware Bluecoats basketball. The Bluecoats are a G League affiliate of the Philadelphia 76ers. The Wilmington Blue Rocks, they're a minor league affiliate for the Washington Nationals. So being able to provide students those kind of opportunities is such a difference from what I was experiencing when I was in school. And now podcasting, students have opportunities to do podcasts on baseball, basketball, football. We have general sports podcasts. Clearly, we do a lot in the Rowan space for Rowan Sports and podcasting as well. So there are just so many more opportunities now. And I wouldn't say, like, our staffing numbers they're slightly less than what they were when I was a student back in the early 2000s. But I think the students still have an opportunity to impact things just as much, if not more.
One of the things that I think that you're known for is also supporting your students and supporting women's athletes and women's sports and women broadcasters. Tell us about that.
We've been very fortunate to have a tremendous amount of female leaders at the radio station. And it's not easy because you're, in a lot of cases, surrounded by a lot of males.
Right.
And we have had just countless numbers of females who have come in and earned the opportunity to be a leader and have shown through their hard work and dedication that they are going to be successful at whatever role we put them in. And I think that's been one of the huge parts of success for us. Megan Steckler, who was a business major as an undergrad, won 2 Gracie Awards for the radio station. No one had ever won 2 Gracie Awards for the radio station. She came in, was a business major, didn't have really any background as a radio, TV, film kind of person.
Right.
But she had, whether sometimes you realize this or not as a person coming in to the situation, she had leadership skills. She had organizational skills. She had a lot of the dynamics and the personality that we look for in station members to be able to contribute. So we're in huge support of that. I think that's one of the reasons why we've been very successful over the last 25, 30 years in particular. And I think that's going to be a trend that continues for us.
Right. You see more and more women in sports, in casting, and now even in coaching, even men's sports, and basketball. So pivoting to coaching, who in life, not necessarily athletics or in broadcasting, who in your life would you say is one of your biggest coaches?
Probably my parents. I know that might be a default stock answer, but
that's okay.
Probably my parents are still to this day my greatest teachers in life. For a long time, obviously, it was Frank Hogan because I would see him when I was assistant station manager. I went from having him as somebody who I learned from because he was the general manager at the radio station teaching me, who was a student. And then eventually I was the assistant station manager while he was the general manager. So we were both employees at the same time. So he was my coach for a long time until he retired. And I still to this day, I think I consider him a coach. John Sadak, who is in the business, he's the TV play-by-play announcer for the Cincinnati Reds now. I consider him a coach. Every time I talk to him, I feel like I'm back in college listening and in awe of what he's saying, even though we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
It's somebody you can sit down with and learn from, and someone who's been such a positive influence on me.
What are you most proud of in your work?
I think seeing students develop. And when we get students, sometimes they're freshmen, sometimes they're sophomores, juniors, whenever you get them, what they become by the time they graduate is what the job's all about. Getting them jobs, helping them get jobs, that's awesome. But seeing them develop as humans, I think that is the most enjoyable part of the job, always.
That's an awesome answer. I like that. What's something you've learned from your students?
I think you have to listen to your students because sometimes you're too close to you're too close to the day-to-day operation sometimes to take a step back and say, oh, wait, they're right. There have been a couple situations where students have suggested to make changes X, Y, and Z, and my initial thought was absolutely not. And they would keep leaning on me to do it, and I eventually listened, and they were 200% correct. That doesn't always happen, but
Sure.
You do have to open yourself up to wanting to listen to your students. I think we have executive staff meetings with our student leadership at the radio station. Those meetings are important because that's where you get ideas. And sometimes students, even though we're in this age of social media and everybody knows everything, you don't know everything about your students. You don't know what they're going through. And in a lot of cases, they're afraid to talk about it. So I think you have to be open to listen to them, because if you're not, problems can come up just like that if you're not careful. But if you at least know how your students are feeling and how they're dealing with things, then it's easier to kind of deal with situations on a case-by-case basis. You stay somewhere long enough, the students are going to change. And sometimes you don't recognize that. You have to be able to recognize it. And sometimes they'll tell you. They're like, we're not doing this. Or
Right.
we're not doing it this way is not going to work. It may have worked.
But there are better ways now.
There are better ways now to do this.
Yeah. Okay. What does this quote mean to you? We sleep in May.
That is college basketball. That's what it means to me. I love that quote. That's something that is often used in college basketball lexicon, because when you start the college basketball season in November, it's a long grinding process until the NCAA tournament, which starts in March and then ends in early April. We sleep in May.
Okay. But I do have to say, for Rowan University, we don't sleep in May because that's commencement season. And you are...
No, I don't sleep in May.
No. And you are one of the individuals who announces the names of the students as they cross that stage. They hand over their card with their name and the pronunciation, and you call out their name. Then they go and cross the stage and shake the hand of their dean or whomever for their parents and families to see. So one of the happy times of the year where we get to celebrate our students and their achievements, and you're a big part of that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think anytime you get to that point of the year, it's a very bittersweet part of the year, because you're saying goodbye to students. And I'll be clear about something. One of the frightening things about this is some of these people you're never going to see again. And it's a very sobering thought about commencement. And that's the thing. It's like just for the radio station alone, we turn over, 20, 25 new kids a year from commencement who graduate. Some you will hear from, some you don't. So that moment where you're reading a student's name it's almost like the end of a television series.
Yeah.
And I have taken a lot of pride in doing that, because in that role, you're part of a student's moment.
Okay, speaking of college basketball, it's coming up.
Yes.
And you've done some calling for games.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
So during the course of the college basketball year, I work for Princeton University and cover their men's basketball games. And then ESPN, I also do some of their college basketball package as well. So that is going to be a busy time for me. I love college basketball, and I look forward to that time of year all the time. We mentioned, we sleep in May. A part of that is covering college basketball. You're doing all that. There's a lot of travel that is looped into it. So
you're traveling for ESPN.
Yes.
For Princeton.
Yes.
Home games, away games,
Yes.
the whole bit.
Correct.
Okay. And give us some highlights. What do you love about it?
I love that you're getting an opportunity to experience a lot of different environments you've never been in before. There have been so many little cool nuanced things. I mean, the games are fun. That's always cool. There's no doubt about it. But being able to meet all of these cool people that you get a chance to converse with, just basketball people who are coaches. I love talking to coaches because coaches are not normal people by and large. Their brains are just wired differently.
Right.
So I just love talking to coaches, meeting them, hearing their stories. The same for the student athletes as well. I think that's always unique. I think going to some of the different arenas where the fans are passionate. I've been to the University of North Carolina. I've called a game there. I've gotten a chance to call a game at Duke through Princeton. So you get a chance to meet all of these fans who you've for years have seen on television. Who are they as crazy as they appear to be on TV? The answer is yes. Yes, they are.
Maybe more so.
Well, I didn't. It's funny. I didn't understand. You understand it when you watch it on TV, but it's a whole different thing when you go in person.
Yeah.
I was at Syracuse. It's a different name now because of the corporate sponsorship, but the Carrier Dome, where Syracuse men's basketball plays. I was there doing a game, this was a couple of years ago, and I was packing up my stuff, and there was a cop like right near me as I was walking off the court, and he was looking at me, and I was like, "Hey, how are you?" Like, he's like, "Oh yeah, everything's fine, good." I said, "What's up?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm your police escort to your car." And I was like, police escort to my broadcasters need police escorts to their car here? But it is important to note fans understand the game.
Yes.
They understand where broadcasters come in, where they go out, and all that. So that's one of the things that sometimes they'll see you walking in, they'll watch you as you're doing your business, and then if they say, "Hey, you're too biased towards our team,"
we're going to tell you about it.
Yeah, I've had people before get upset at me for things that other people have said.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I wasn't here. I mean, I've had fans come over and say, "Hey man, take it easy on our team tonight. You guys are always tough on us." Who's you guys? This is my first time here. Give me a break.
Yeah.
So the fan, I love that part of college sports. So fans are so passionate. I think that's one thing about living in the Northeast. Sometimes I don't think you understand until you go down there and experience it in person. The fandom down south is different. It is the way we view professional sports here is the way they view sports on the college side down south.
Right.
It is a way of life for them because they don't have, in some cases, an NBA team, an NHL team, an NFL team, baseball team. They don't have all that. So in some cases, this is it for them. So they put all of their drive and energy towards their teams. And I think you feel that sometimes when you go in the building.
Yeah. Yeah. And just being in a place where you're having a live sport where they are just so invested in it, just the vibe and the excitement is just so different than watching it on screen. It's just a whole nother animal.
Right. And I think that gives you energy as a person. Sometimes I was told years ago not to do this, but I do it because I just want to know in case I'm missing something. They tell you don't read the comments on social media. Don't read Twitter. Don't look at any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I will sometimes look at it because sometimes you might pick up on something that, oh, I didn't think of that. I think the common complaint is we are biased. We hate whoever their team is, which is not true. What is true is we have to give energy into what's happening in the game.
Right.
So that's what it all comes down to. I'm not going to get any more money because I yell a little harder for team X over team Y. There's no that's not what we're trying to do here. I think you want to put energy into what you're doing as a broadcaster, and that should be both ways. So if you're calling for a specific team who is paying your way, I think that's a different conversation. But for the ESPN side of it, you're not biased. You're really not trying to be biased. You're just trying to get enthusiastic about what I'm seeing and doing.
Right. Well, this is a great segue because recently we visited the radio station, Rowan Radio, and I had my first experience in broadcasting, quote unquote. We took a look at the clips, and we had some good laughs. It was so much fun visiting the radio station. It really was. It feels like this sort of mysterious playground, experiment lab sort of a
Never heard
place.
it described like that before. That's good.
I got a chance to do some sports broadcasting, and it was pretty fascinating. What was your take on our visit?
I think it's a big ask to tell someone, hey, why don't you sit down here and call this game right now? You did it, though. So I think one of the things that about broadcasting is a big part of it is preparation.
Yeah.
We gave you none of that.
None of that.
So that was pretty interesting. But you understand there are a lot of nerves that go into it.
For sure.
It's a very nerve-wracking experience.
Yeah.
I've talked about some of the nerve-wracking experiences working for ESPN. I've had just as many nerve-wracking experiences calling games at the D3 level that we could fill up another show just going through that. But yeah, it's a different experience. We've had people for years who were like, I want to do play-by-play broadcasting. I want to do it. And they go on and do it and then realize, oh my goodness, this is a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know until you get in the mix,
right,
to find out whether you can do it or not.
I am not very knowledgeable about a lot of sports, and it was really just get in there and sink or swim.
If you're willing to learn, you can call anything.
Yeah.
I called bowling for the first time last year.
That's right.
Yes.
How did that go?
That was, you want to talk about nerve-wracking. I mean, you're right next to the bowlers as they're bowling.
Can they hear you?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. So, and there are maybe 50 fans in there who are cheering.
Okay.
But they can hear every word you're saying. So that's a lot different. Football, all the other sports, they're not really able to hear you.
Right.
Like the only other experience I can liken it to is if you call a game at the Rowan baseball or softball complex, because of where we're situated, they can hear you if you
if you're
say
loud
some
enough.
stuff, if you're loud enough. So I think that experience was incredibly nerve-wracking.
And in bowling, when you're calling it, it's sort of quieter, right? They have to focus.
Yes.
And so they really are going to hear you.
I liken it a little bit in terms of the atmosphere. This might sound like a weird comparison to golf.
No, I think that's what I'm picturing.
Because you don't want to talk or take pictures on somebody's backswing and mess up their concentration. It's kind of a similar thought process for bowling. You don't want to talk while they're in rhythm. So you get that time while they're standing there kind of trying to think through. That's your time to talk. And then once the ball hits, then you can, throw something in there if you want. But it was a tricky sport. I mean, I remember when they first contacted me about doing it, I was like, what? I haven't done bowling. What?
Right.
And they said, we think you can do it. You think? Can I? You don't know what you don't know unless you do it.
That's right.
So I think that's one of the things you kind of got a chance to experience.
Well, for me, it was, without the experience, it was still about the care. I was invested. It was nerve-wracking, definitely. I wanted to get things right. I wanted to get their names right, both teams. I wanted to understand what was happening and be able to call it correctly. And as I said to you after, my hands were clenched the whole time because I just wanted to get it right. And I wanted, it's like caring and being invested in it.
Right.
So.
And that's, you hit on important stuff there. I mean, being able to describe it right. But then if you describe it right, all you need to mess all of that up is pronouncing somebody's name wrong.
Right.
And that, that's all people are going to remember.
Favorite broadcaster?
Pat Summerall. Of all time, Pat Summerall. He's the best football announcer ever. Well, he may not. Now you got me thinking about this. Well, okay. So Pat Summerall is my favorite announcer all time. My favorite one right now, Joe Buck.
Okay.
It's Joe Buck.
Okay.
I know that would be very unpopular in the Philadelphia area. He's good. He's good. It's okay to admit that he's good.
Why is that unpopular? Fill me in. Clue me in.
A lot of people in the Philadelphia area think that he is biased towards Philadelphia teams. He doesn't like Philadelphia teams. It's from when he was calling the World Series in 08 and 09 when the Phillies were in the World Series those 2 years. So there's a lot of ill will towards him in the Philadelphia area in regards to that. He recently actually showed a video on his Twitter where he's at a golf course and he was hanging out with Chase Utley. So, but he was doing it kind of to troll Philadelphia fans who say, I hate Philadelphia sports, huh? And here's a video of me hanging out with Chase Utley, and then he yells down the golf course and he says, hey, Shane, say hi. And it was Shane Victorino, who was also on those teams. So I think he gets a bad rap sometimes. I think he's an excellent broadcaster. I really do. Fair
enough. Where do you see the future for yourself, the station, broadcasting? Give us some tidbits.
I think first for Rowan Radio, I think for us, I think we're going to keep doing what we're doing from a musical standpoint, but I think the difference for us will be content creation and leaning more into podcasting. I don't think necessarily sports podcasting. Look, we have a lot of sports podcasting, so we're going to keep doing that, obviously. But I think expanding news, reporting, like small things like that, I think that's where the future, I think, will go for us as we try to expand that. I think that's something I would really like to do from the radio station's perspective, because we're looking at right now, maybe by the end of spring 26, we're going to be near 100, 120 students. So you have to find opportunities for students. So I think that's the challenge for us. Are we finding enough opportunities for students? And how are we able to do that and still be able to put on a great product? Because ultimately, the radio station is the Rowan University student base. We're not successful without the students. We're not the college radio station of the year a handful of times, 3 times, without their help. So we need them to be able to do that. And I think that's really the key, finding students opportunities where they fit in and where they can excel and best showcase their strengths. I think for me, you know, I love broadcasting. I love sports broadcasting. I'd like to continue to do it. My ultimate dream is to do some NBA stuff down the line. I would love to do that. We'll see if that happens at some point. I would love to do football on TV at some point. We'll see if that happens. But those are, future goals that I have in mind. For broadcasters, you're going to have to learn how to be more than just one thing. If you're a play-by-play announcer, you better learn something else.
Right.
If you're a producer, you should learn something else. You've got to find different ways to survive in broadcasting.
That's great. I think that's really good advice, really good thoughts there. It was so much fun visiting the radio station. Highly recommend it. It was a blast. And what you have going on there is such a good program for students and the community. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us at the station, and thank you so much for coming on today to our podcast. We're so grateful to have you here, especially as a fellow broadcaster, podcaster of all things. And so I think it would be appropriate for today for you to sign us off of our show.
Me? Okay, I'll have to see what I can do here. Well, let me try this. For Karen Holloway, I'm Derek Jones saying so long. Please join us next time on Rowan On.